each year.
This meeting is being recorded.
And once someone falls, their chances of falling again double from that point forward. So as an agency, we have accessibility concerns for the clients we serve, especially during the winter. There are numerous agencies and locations in Ithaca that are vital to the health and well-being of our seniors or our older adults, not just our office. And I've personally seen the crosswalks and sidewalks around the nearby doctor's offices, our office, cluttered and full of snow and ice after a snow event. And older adults' risk of falling increases exponentially when these factors are added to the equation. Even a daily walk to, for me, to in the wintertime to like shortstop to grab some lunch. The crosswalks are completely, overflowed with snow and ice, and I have a hard time walking through them. So the concerns are real.
Thanks, Rodney.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Margaret talking about why this is important for everyone.
Sure. So if the edges of crosswalks and bike lanes are blocked, that makes it hard to bike. If the sidewalks are icy or blocked, it makes it hard to roll. And all kinds of rolling is difficult in these conditions. And at Bike Walk Tompkins, we are promoting biking, walking, and rolling, partly for health and practicality, and partly because it means people don't have to jump in a car to get where they're going for a short trip. So we think it's really important to make sure that the sidewalks and edges of crosswalks are clear so that people can use all these means of active transportation year-round.
Great. Next up, Eric is going to talk a little more about the situation. Eric, did you want to switch slides at this point? Was this what you were talking about?
Hey, good evening. I'm Eric Lerner. My wife Susan and I have lived in Ithaca since 1970, and we've owned our home on South Plain Street since 1983. I'm delighted to see so many people here tonight to talk about snow in an August drought. Before I say anything else, let me start a slideshow of some snowy Ithaca crosswalks. I'll say more about these in a minute. But first, there it is. And that, yes. Okay, from 2018 through 2021, I was chair of Ithaca's Mobility, Accessibility, and Transportation Commission, MATCOM. Hang on just a second, I have lost my screen here. Whoops. There we go. In the fall of 2019, at the request of Common Council, MATCOM did a survey of Ithacans about pedestrian snow removal. We got an astonishing 800 plus responses to the survey. Large majorities of respondents were unhappy with how hard it is to get around in winter and supported city government doing more to clear snow from walkways. The full results of the survey are available online. The URL for my website is in the signature to all my emails. Then COVID arrived, and the city put MATCOM and the other commissions on hold. This year, I left MATCOM and invited others to join me in persuading the city to do a better job. The hardest part of getting around Ithaca in the snow is getting across the street at intersections. Often, the obstruction is mounded snow and slush where the sidewalk meets the street. As the pictures roll by, please note how often we see the same pattern. The sidewalk is clear, the traffic lanes in the street are clear, but the way from the sidewalk to the street is blocked by snow and ice and slush. Often that obstruction remains for days after the traffic lanes and sidewalks are clear. Why does that happen? Ithaca's code says property owners are responsible for clearing sidewalks and curb cuts, but the curb cut only extends from the sidewalk down to the curb line. Clearing the area in the street beyond the curb line is not the property owner's job. Meanwhile, DPW, the Department of Public Works, plows the traffic lanes and parking lanes in the street, but the street plows are too large and not nimble enough to clear the narrow area where the curb cut meets the crosswalk. Clearing the crosswalk end to end would require additional hardware and personnel. So clearing the crosswalks is not DPW's job either. The bottom line is, under current Ithaca policy, it is no one's job to clear snow from crosswalk ends, nor to ensure that pedestrians can get all the way across the street. I believe this is the central problem with Ithaca's pedestrian snow removal. If there are smaller plows out clearing the crosswalks, they can clear sidewalks as they travel between intersections. Professionals with power tools can get a lot more done than thousands of neighbors with hand tools. In recent years, Rochester and Syracuse have shown that this can work. And now I'm going to switch off that screen share somehow. Stop share. And then you can bring the slideshow back, Rashka, but let me continue. Why doesn't this happen in Ithaca? In brief, it's because DPW management doesn't want it. For complex reasons, they have other priorities in their budget. Change will only happen if the mayor and common council proactively vote to require a change of policy at DPW in the 2023 budget, which will be drafted in September. Our elected officials will only do that if Ithacans tell them emphatically that the current plan just doesn't work and that we expect them to do better. We're hoping that everyone here today can help communicate that message to Ithaca city government. Let me take just a minute to point out some solutions that are not really solutions. I've heard common council members say, why not just do a better job enforcing the current law? Under any plan, enforcement will still be necessary, but better enforcement will do nothing to clear blocked crosswalks. Also, there are about 5,500 properties in the city of Ithaca. If just 10% of those are uncleared after a snowstorm, that's 550 uncleared lots. Enforcement personnel can visit just a small fraction of those. Some common council members like to urge volunteerism as a low-cost solution. Let's find some Cornell students to help out, they say. Volunteers can surely help with individual hardship cases for folks who have challenges clearing their own walks. But volunteerism is a drop in the bucket if we need to clear 75 miles of sidewalk and about 2,000 crosswalks at about 600 intersections. We need professionals with power tools. Clearing snow and ice from pedestrian walkways is a solvable problem. Please help us persuade our elected officials to take action to require DPW to address this. Before we're done this evening, we'll tell you more about how to do that. Thank you.
Excuse me, this is Charlene. Is someone going to explain the Rochester and Syracuse solutions?
Let me take a real quick stab at that because it's long and complex and we're not going to have time for that. But both of those cities have introduced new programs in which the city in Rochester, they will clear all the sidewalks in the city when there's 4 inches of snow. In Syracuse, they will clear a list of prioritized streets. I'm not sure what the threshold is for that. There's a lot of details to be learned that we don't really have in hand yet.
But thank you for the question. I'm glad we got around to addressing that too. So as has been mentioned a few times, our group has been asking Common Council in the budget to fund a study quantifying the problem and the resources needed to address it, as well as the pilot project, which Margaret explained, clearing crosswalks and sidewalks at a few key locations, especially heavily traveled areas and neighborhoods. But now we want to hear from all of you. So in the invitation, we asked you to think about your story about getting around Ithaca in the winter and what your perception is of what is needed most. To give everyone as much a chance to share as possible, please try to keep your comments to a few sentences. You'll each have around a minute to respond, and we'll give you a little bump when it's time to pass it on to the next person. And the other thing that we ask is try to use your time to share your own experiences and perspectives rather than responding to a specific person. So if you are interested in sharing, you can use the raise your hand, you can unmute, or you can say in the chat that you're interested in sharing.
And Rashka, you'll call on people?
Yes, I will call on you as I see you. But Eric, if I miss someone, please let me know.
This is Charlene. May I contribute something?
Yes, please.
I live on North Tioga Street, right by the Cascadilla Bridge. And I have a driveway, and when I back my car out onto the street, it creates an icy area. When the snowplow comes, as I think Eric stated, it creates an icy bank, both of which are very hard to shovel. I was fined last winter for the icy sidewalk at the end of my driveway. I got a 50-pound bag of salt, and it took at least an hour of the salt resting on 3 inches of solid ice that my car created to be able to shovel it away. Strangely enough, when I took my ticket or whatever I was issued and went to, I don't know where it was above the police station, maybe on the 2nd or 3rd floor. The eldest employee there said, "You're not going to be fined, even though this letter says you're going to be fined." Right now, this whole issue is up in the air. I don't know when it will be resolved. So you can ignore this fine that is telling you you have to pay it. And I said, this is sounding like the Twilight Zone. I receive a letter, and yet I'm told ignore it. And you don't know when this letter will actually become valid. So I do it myself. I hire people to shovel my sidewalk, but going in and out of my driveway does create compressed snow, which then turns into ice. And
Thank you for
North
sharing,
Tioga
Charlene.
Street.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are going to have to move on just so we can make sure everyone gets a chance to talk. We
Certainly.
can come back if we need it or if we have the time. Next up is Armin.
I thank you all for inviting me, and I really appreciate how well organized and structured this meeting is. I just want to say that the solutions and the identification of the complexity of the problem is really, really helpful. I live on the corner of First and Monroe on the north side, and have been living there for about 25 years. And we live in a corner, so we're shoveling sidewalks and curb cuts. And so when I go to work, things are clear. I come home and there are ice piles that I'm desperately trying. And if I have all the tools and the resources and some time, and I still have a problem, I can't imagine what it's like for other people. So I'm going to be really brief in my comments and just say that I'm thinking, you know, right now I'm communicating with you from Montreal, a city that really takes great pride in managing their infrastructure and making it so that people can walk to grocery stores and things like that. And so I just wanted to pitch in that I think that as an experimental first year or first couple year initiative, it'd be really a good idea maybe to, like, first of all, establish a public-private partnership with, say, the Co-op, Aldi, and Wegmans, the 3 grocery stores, and then look at streets like South Street and Wood Street and 3rd Street as crossovers and on access to, say, public transportation infrastructure like bus stops and the public library and things like that, to just look at what are the corridors that we need to clear.
Yeah.
Once we do that, we have a much better sense of once we see improvement, I think then we're going to get a lot more people on board. And that's it.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Diana and Doyle. I'm not sure who's actually on that, but that is the email.
Yeah, this is Dan Doyle.
You're on mute now. You were not on mute before. One second.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Well, we live in the Bell Sherman area, and we lived here 9 years now, but we're from Buffalo and Rochester, so totally familiar with the whole snow thing. And I'm amazed at that nobody has gotten seriously hurt. Maybe they have, but on Ithaca Road, it's extraordinary seeing people crossing the street on their way to work. A lot of people apparently going to Cornell, young people, and the street, you can't get across that whole strip from Ithaca and Ithaca Road where Mitchell stops. There's a block there that for about a month, you can't walk past that, and people cross the street 366. Not to be an alarmist, but is it going to take someone getting killed or seriously maimed for these sidewalks to get cleared appropriately? So that's my comment, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
It's a strong comment. Thank you. Next up, Barbara.
Yeah, I live right downtown next to the library. You think it would be perfect down here. This was my first winter down here. I don't drive. And I agree with the previous comments that it's not just old people, it's the young people who are walking, because a lot of them, the whole lure of downtown is you don't need a car. So a lot of people are walking, not just old people. I think downtown, even at the intersection of Cayuga and Green, sometimes you can't reach the walk button. There's so much snow piled up around the walk button. And the businesses like CTB, I don't know how they get anybody walking there in the wintertime. So I agree. And maybe Downtown Alliance, maybe we should be talking to them, because I know they hire ambassadors in the summer to clean up trash. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Cheryl.
Hello, I live downtown here near BJM and GIAC. And my experience has been a learning process over the 20 years. A concern I have is that there needs to be an education about how to best, most effectively clear sidewalks for homeowners. I mean, all the other issues I totally agree with, I've encountered. But my finding is that this current system depends on one, calling out your neighbors, which is not a very good idea. It creates poor relationships. It's not a way something like sidewalk clearing should have to happen, that there should be a monitoring, not just clearing those places eventually that somebody's complained about on their neighbor. I've also learned that the most efficient way to maintain a clear and very passable sidewalk is not usually to use a shovel, that most frequently with our light snows, you go out with a broom, you can quickly clear the sidewalk. And then we frequently, especially if you do it in the morning, and then maybe when you come home from work, if it snowed again, but often it doesn't even snow again. And that sidewalk remains clear for days while the neighbors who have waited the full 24 hours or more have ice pounded on their sidewalk that then becomes, by the time they get home, it's very difficult to remove. So I think there's some strategies that could be communicated with a public, through, the challenges are the mediums anymore to communicate with people, but to make a real effort to help people do a better job of their work, and that maybe reducing the time that you have before you have to clear the sidewalk would also facilitate that, because it does not, you get ice when you wait 24 hours or more in most cases that have been walked on downtown. So that's what I wanted to share. A little different angle.
Next up, we have Peggy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I do not live in the city of Ithaca. I live in Trumansburg, but I lived in Ithaca for many years and I still like to shop there. My issue is with the cockamamie parking system that is so hard to get to. And if I need to walk 4 or 5 car lengths on an icy sidewalk or in an icy road to put my money in the machine, it's really scary. I'm terribly afraid of falling on the ice. I walk with a cane, and sometimes I think the best use of that cane is to just beat up that machine.
Really, even getting to the machine, yeah.
Anyway, perhaps they should have free parking during the winter. I don't know, something needs to be done.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the perspective of someone who lived here and still like shops here and is part of the community. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Next up, Jan S.
Hi, I'm Jan. I'm an older person. I've lived in Ithaca for about 45 years, but I've only lived on West Hill for about the past 5 years, and our issues on West Hill are considerable. And I'm not even talking about the places that don't have sidewalks. I am fortunate enough to work downtown, and I either walk or ride my bike to and from my home on Hector Street to downtown Monday through Friday. The city maintains is responsible for maintaining the foot of the Hector Street hill, which is quite steep. Because Hector Street is Route 79, that gets plowed first. So we are often in the position of, especially after heavy snowfall, to walk in the roadway because the city has not plowed the lower part of Hector Street where there's a nice sidewalk. And then we get to the bridge, and the bridge will be plowed. 3 lanes are open. There are no cars. There are plenty of people walking to downtown in the middle of the roadway because the snow plows throw the snow rocks onto the sidewalks, those beautiful sidewalks and bike lanes that we worked so hard to get. So that's a huge concern, and I know it's slightly off topic. We're not talking about curb cuts or anything like that. We're talking about a stretch of completely impassable sidewalk because of the snowplows throwing, a few feet of their snow rocks onto the sidewalk. Once I get downtown, I'm so happy to be able to use the sidewalk at all that I don't mind clambering over the snow mountains in the curb cuts, even though as an elder with osteoporosis, I know that's not the wisest thing for me to do. Again, sometimes it's just easier, though probably no safer, to walk in the nicely cleared roadway. And I went to University of Montreal. Armin, thanks for reminding me about how great the snow removal is in Montreal. And I'm a people first thing. We want to be moving people first, and having the sidewalks accessible is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And what Margaret said is sidewalks are very much on topic. So no worries about getting off topic. Miriam? I don't know, Miriam, are you still here? Okay, no worries.
Now am I unmuted?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I live in the DeWitt Mall. I am 85. I depend upon a very tough walker. And most of the time I walk all over this area, really an extended area. I am fortunate that in the DeWitt Mall, I can walk in the corridors so that I can get that exercise, and that with Green Star in the basement, I can get food. However, those pictures of blocked crosswalks were poignant to me. I could not, for instance, frequently, and some of this is more important than others, hairdresser, maybe you can say, okay. On the other hand, that's 2 blocks away on Buffalo. My doctor is 2 blocks away on Hugo. I could not get there. I take classes at Lifelong, that is 2 blocks away. I could not get there. I take Gadabout for an assortment of things, the dentist today, for instance, physical therapy, doctor's appointments further away. And again, during these snow periods, I could not get onto a Gadabout bus. So these are all areas which are important to me. Again, an 85-year-old with a walker. Some of them you can get away with, and some of them you really can't. And this is what I hope can be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
We know people that we have about 5 minutes left on this. This is all really great and going to get everybody, but we're also coming to the end of the time we have set aside for this.
And we have about 3 people left on our list right now. So if you did want to talk, please let me know. Next up, Miguelina.
Hi there. Well, like everybody else says, I am having difficulty moving around. I live on Hancock Street, and the crosswalks are always piled high. And that is very difficult for me, you know, in order to get to the bus stop or get to the library or a grocery store. And then one time I had a bag of salt on my porch, and someone from the city gave me a ticket for having a bag of salt on my porch. And as far as I know, it is, you could actually even go to jail for having that. And so I had to talk to the district attorney to pardon me for that. Can you believe it? It is unbelievable what's going on down here. And I really, really wish that instead of just cleaning off the crosswalks, that we can clean all of the sidewalks. You know, I think that maybe up in Cayuga Heights, they clean them all and they don't have to deal with any of this nonsense. Why can't we have this here where the students walk like if they were kings and queens?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any last words?
No, that's what I wanted to say. I am really upset that we cannot walk on our very own streets. I get up in the morning and I clean up my snow. I shovel my snow, and I do that throughout the day while my neighbor is out working and they have it piled high, and you know, and stuff like that. So I am really upset that we can't have snow removal down in Ithaca for everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rebecca W.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Wager and I live in Fall Creek. I live with very severe long-term chronic illness, and I'm primarily bedbound and housebound. I go through periods of the year where I can't leave my home for months on end, and other times where I could leave my home maybe once or twice a month. And so for me, I'm a power wheelchair user. When I leave home, I have friends who walk my dogs, and they report back to me whether or not I could leave my home based on all of the areas around me. Certainly the crosswalks are a problem here, but just the sidewalks in general are a problem here. And Last year, we had a snowstorm where the report from my friends was I could not leave the house for 2 weeks. And so that means that I am likely to lose the only social opportunity I might have had in a 1 or 2 months' time, or I'm going to miss a doctor's appointment that I'm then going to have to reschedule and wait for, because it's also difficult for me to ride in a car. I will say that I have been bugging Robert Cantelmo about the sidewalks since before he was elected, and he's doing a good job from everything I hear, and I'm really thrilled about that, and hope we can keep making some progress.
We appreciate bothering our elections.
All the time, constantly.
Any final words for you? Thank you. Next up, we have Jane. I think you're on mute.
Lived in Brooklyn, and just recently, just before I moved here, I was living in Chicago. And in New York and Brooklyn and in Chicago, you expect the big cities to have this terrible snow removal programs. But here in Ithaca, they promote that this is a town, a city that is so walkable.
Right. Yeah.
I live actually on Buffalo between Plain and Park. So I'm right like 2 blocks, 3 blocks from Meadow. I don't have a car. So I walk to Wegmans going south, or I walk to the co-op going north. And during the winter months, it is just, as we've all said, impossible. And even if you try to circumvent a crosswalk, the cars don't give a care that you're out there. They don't look for you. It's terrible. But I'm also noticing that it's so much of the residents need to shovel. The residents need to shovel. My daughter, who we won't get into why I have to walk, but she lives on East Hill. Several of the residents on East Hill got tickets a couple years ago for not having shoveled. But I have just this past winter, so many businesses were not shoveled.
Yes.
Now, the block I live on, I live right by the frame shop, and my particular block is really good about shoveling. So in my immediate area, I have no problems other than, yes, at the crosswalks, which that's another story. But so often, and it's not like the commons, but I've seen shops on Buffalo, on State, that they don't shovel. Now, some of the businesses were like empty. The buildings were empty. And it's like, well, but ones that are open, the city does nothing, but they complain about residents that don't. And I'm not saying residents should not shovel, but I get very upset of it when I see these businesses along Meadow, especially. You've got the horrid crosswalks, and then you've got people that haven't shoveled the businesses. Very, very bad. But it's something that I hate to say it, I don't like it at all. But having lived in New York and Buffalo and Brooklyn and in Chicago, it's like, I'm used to it. But I would like to see a change, and whatever you guys want to, whatever we can do to help push this through, maybe, count me in, please. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll talk about that in 1 second, but I do want to give our last person, David, a chance to talk.
Okay. I lived at Titus Towers here, unfortunately, for the past over 20 years. I've walked down Plain Street. I all the way down to State Street and downtown when I used to work there. I see properties that are shoveled, 1 blade's worth down there. And by my knowledge, you're supposed to shovel the entire sidewalk. And then there's the Meadowcourt Motel on Meadow Street, of course. They never shovel their sidewalk every single year. I'm tempted to go in there and start yelling at whoever the heck is their maintenance person. Am I muted?
Nope, you're
No,
all
I'm
good.
not. Okay, just want to make sure.
Are you finished, David?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, wasn't sure if you had another thing to say.
Oh, that's why. That's why I was kind of okay.
All right, so we'll bring him back up. And so our last thing, how can you help? We have some options, and you'll be getting all of these links and contact information in an email after this session. But some of the ways to help. Tomorrow, yes. You can email all of Common Council. You can email Acting Mayor Lewis, and this helps because they are starting to make the budget. You can phone or email Common Council members from your neighborhood. You can speak to Common Council during the public comment section of the meetings. Their meetings are on the first Wednesday of every month. And there's also the specific committee meetings, like the City Administration Committee meeting, which is August 24th, that you can also speak at. Public comment, you have to sign up the day of before 3 p.m. And again, you'll be getting all of this information in an email. So we're about at the end, but if you feel like in the chat, you can let us know what action you could see yourself taking.
And Rashka, let me emphasize that City Administration Committee meeting, which is Wednesday of this week, and that's chaired by Rob Cantelmo, who got mentioned earlier as he's been being very vocal about how he's in favor of doing something about pedestrian snow. And he keeps telling us he's going to do something, but we haven't seen it yet. So we are certainly hoping that as many people as possible can either write to the members of that committee between now and Wednesday saying what you're in favor of, or even better, come to speak at public comment this Wednesday. There's an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. And again, the email tomorrow will explain all the nuts and bolts about how to do that if you have questions.
So I really want to encourage people to talk to Common Council. I was worried that I might have to teach you how to do it and how to be effective, but the stories that you told are exactly the kind of things that we need to be saying to Common Council. So bother them, make good trouble, as John Lewis used to say. We could make this happen.
Yeah, it was really great that there were a variety of stories, and also just a variety of emphasis on different things. So I think the personal stories really resonate with, I would hope, with the people on Common Council or on the City Administration Committee. So don't feel you have to have some, long researched piece to say. You can just say what you said tonight.
Miguelina just asked in the chat whether we have a pre-formatted letter, and the answer to that is no, we don't. I believe, and I think we believe, that elected officials are more likely to pay attention to something that is personally written than by something that looks like it was copy and pasted. So far better to tell your own story in your own words, even if it's short, than to send something that's just copied from somewhere.
But if you can make the points that you saw us make about the study and the pilot project, that would be incredibly helpful. So, but all that stuff will be in the email we're sending you tomorrow. So, but I thought you were all wonderful in your clarity about what the problem is. So, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Can we ask right now, are there people that think you will be available to speak to council on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
I think, what time is the meeting?
The meeting is at 6 p.m. And if you want to sign up to speak, you need to go to the city website before 3 p.m. of the day of the meeting to check the boxes.
And did you say common council or city administration? I thought you said common council.
This Wednesday is Common Council City Administration Committee meeting.
Oh, okay.
And that's the committee that's responsible for this piece of policy.
And you'll tell us on the website, like where the website is in the email. Okay.
Is anybody else thinking they'll do that? Yay, sure, Cheryl. Good for you.
But even if you just talk to your elected official or send all of Common Council your story and ask other people to send their stories, that will all help move us along.
If I might comment, I've learned working with the community gardens over the last at least the last decade, that speaking up and paying attention to these kinds of things, and even if it's challenging to do a public comment, which I still find myself stumbling over, it's very worthwhile, and it's effective, especially if you keep at it and talking to your council people.
Yeah, you're right.
Armin just asked in the chat about contacting Ithaca Voice. Actually, Ithaca Voice had asked for the link to today's meeting, but then didn't show up. But we are recording this meeting except for the first 10 minutes. And I'm hoping to put the recording of this meeting online so that people who weren't here today can watch it. And that includes Ithaca Voice.
Jane? In your email that you're sending out, does it tell, I don't know where this Common Council meets at. If I wanted to go to the meeting, I don't know where they meet.
We'll include all of that.
Oh, you will? Okay, great. I do not normally go into buildings, but I'll mask up. Could I go in and just speak and then leave? Would that be okay?
It should be online, right?
Yeah.
These are hybrid meetings. You can do it live or you can do it on Zoom.
Oh, I can do it on Zoom. Oh,
Yeah.
that's even better. Okay, so you'll tell me how to do that, please, because I'm not too tech savvy. Oh, great. Okay, then definitely, if it's a Zoom, I will do it. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, there's a little bit of technical stuff that people have to do, like you have to show up, you have to be on Zoom. But in terms of actually what you want to say to them, I think you heard it all today. You all know what we want, and you said it really clearly. And to say how important it is to you is really necessary. But you already know what you want to say.
Yeah. As somebody said, it's disingenuous to say that Ithaca is a walkable city if we can't really walk on it consistently from like October to April.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I have something to add. This is Miguelina. And what I want to say is that Ithaca spends a lot of money building new crosswalks for people with disabilities. And if people with disabilities can't get around during the winter, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Armin. I just wanted to weigh in on that. I think that it's a state law because it's every city across the state, and in fact around the country, it seems to be having to create these curb cuts. But yes, that's the ultimate irony. If you have a curb cut that's completely clear, but then you can't navigate it, it's really treacherous, and it's just unimaginable that we have this problem in our enlightened community. So I think that there's a lot of energy in this space here to make something like this happen. And I think I want to also say that Duck Wen, who's our council member, he's very, very engaged in these issues. And I personally plan to connect with him about this. And I mentioned in the chat that Jimmy Jordan is a neighbor, and I speak with him frequently about articles that he's about to write or that he's written. And he's really an engaged thinker about community issues. He cares a great deal. So I think that we can certainly keep this front and center, especially as we move into the winter months. I think this is a really good timing for this meeting, and I thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So much, for being here, for your energy. We really appreciate it. Your stories are what gives us power, you know? Our stories are what makes things happen. Do any other coalition members have a last closing thing to say?
Cheryl has her hand up, I think.
Oh.
Or Cheryl?
Hands, yes.
I mean, I know Eric mentioned it in his email originally, but I think it's important also to point out that the comprehensive plan for the city puts pedestrians first and bicyclists and cars and trucks last. And they've been working on this. I was on the waterfront committee, and that kind of thing was put a lot into the planning, but bringing that forth and in this way and seeing that the city lives up to what was the desire of the citizens and is the policy supposed to be the policy of the city is really important. So that you can mention, this is our comprehensive plan. This is the order, not roads first necessarily, but let our pedestrians move around the whole year round.
I'd also like
Very good.
I'd like to point out that Rodney, correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology here, but I believe that Ithaca gains the label of age-friendly city, and obviously that doesn't count in the winter. And it seems to me that's something else that we can point out to our city officials.
Yep, you're right, Joanne.
Lots of contradictions in between what's being said and what's being done.
One issue that hasn't been brought up, and maybe it's because of the demographic here at this meeting, is the large amount of rental properties and people waiting for people depending on their landlords to clear their snow. And that is a huge issue that we didn't touch on at all, that I think deserves consideration.
It's a great
point.
point.
So I will rent her, and my landlord is pretty good if that's in the lease, but they have to shovel our sidewalk and ramp. So landlords are an important constituency for this issue.
And I think one thing we didn't touch on is that I think the struggle for the city is that we also need to bring not just our complaints, but ideas for the solutions. And so that's, if you have any, I mean, my sweeping is one that I found is to help people get that ice off, not let that ice form. Even when you shovel, you leave ice behind, but positive suggestions will also help the process. And I think Eric researched some of the, ones in other cities. But most cities, from what I saw, and I've done a little bit of research, rely on, homeowners, residents to clear the sidewalk in front. So we need to improve with ideas of how to facilitate that to be done better. if we can't come up with a city sweeper.
I think everybody here has got my email address because you got the link from me. So feel free to write to me if you have further ideas, questions, suggestions, or what have you. And all of my emails on this topic have at the bottom have my URL for my snow removal website, which has a whole lot more information than we had time to talk about today. If you haven't already, please do take a look at that.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to respect all of our time and close us out. I do really appreciate all of you being here. I felt a good energy in this Zoom room.
Can you send us the email or where we can write to the mayor about this?
Yep, you'll get that email tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Coalition members want to stick around for a couple minutes?
Sure.
Hey, Eric, I would just suggest emailing the link directly to the Ithaca Voice so they don't have to find it somewhere.
So just coalition members stick around. Everybody else is heading out, looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that we're doing anything in secret, but.
Nope.
Charlene may, oh, there's, okay.
One thing that Rebecca asked for was like a simple call to action that could be shared with friends and on social media. So I think we probably have that somewhere in our written materials. But I could make like an easy post as well.
Yay, sounds good.
That was really awesome. I was really worried that it was gonna get bogged down in people's stuff.